All right, everybody, we've got some very special guests for y'all. The boys from Invader Comics have joined us. Keith Foster coming back once again to join the show, and Mike Perkins. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey guys.
Hey, thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Great to be back.
Yeah, super excited to have you guys back, and we want to talk about Neurocon today. But I guess as far as like just how the flow of the show goes, let's talk about Invader and what you guys have been doing. Just because there's a lot of titles up on the page now, you've been doing a lot of cool things. So just give us the lowdown, like how's that journey been, and what do you got coming up?
Yeah, I mean, Invader has been, let's say a long time coming. Previously we were 215 Inc. and we had been doing that for about 10 years when the original owner had to walk away. And so we were sitting on a company that had a name that really didn't have anything to do with us anymore. 215 being the Philadelphia area code. Keith's down in LA, I'm up in Oakland. And we wanted something that was fresh and that would have a new start for not just us, but for all of our creators. And we were looking forward to taking the company in just a new direction, where we were not only getting some books that, our goal has always been to find the books that people were missing, because from the very beginning of my comics journey, I started as a creator myself. First time I went to a con, I would walk around and I would see these books and these creators, and I would pick them up and look at them and I would be like, Jesus, this is better than anything I'm seeing coming out of Dark Horse or Vertigo or Image, and let alone the big two. And not to disparage those companies, but like, these were books that I couldn't believe weren't getting attention, and creators that I couldn't believe weren't getting attention. And I just said, okay, well, this isn't right. These are people out there who are putting in the work, who have the talent, not someone who's putting out a book and not doing anything with it, who are out there going to shows, meeting people, doing everything they can and still not getting the attention. So we found ourselves in a position where we could put a spotlight on these books that just deserved a little bit more. And so we've made it our mission to do everything we can to do that and hopefully elevate these creators. And so far we have a pretty damn good legacy of accuracy of picking those. We've got a lot of creators who started out with us and have gone on to these bigger publishing houses and even bigger successes beyond. Not to pat my own back, but I'm going to do that very thing.
Do it.
Yeah. And then I think a couple things about the rebrand as Invader too. We brought on Kevin and Kevin Miller, and so he's the third partner who can't be with us today. But a couple things that were sort of part of the switch from 215 to Invader was also like Invader as a name is also it's like a mantra, right? Like for us, it is this idea of, if we see something that's cool that may not fit the rules or anything, we'll invade that space, right? Invade a new space. And, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of pre-established spaces. There's plenty of spaces we all know that are sort of adjacent to comics, but we like it as just a thing to keep in our head going forward. Like, what new things are out there? I think by us naming it that, it almost is a reminder to us to continue to innovate, to continue to look for new avenues, new angles, etc. So that was kind of like the first part. And then the second part is one of Mike and I's favorite lines for the past 10 years, or ever since I've known Mike, has been the sub pop of comics, right? Like our logic has been, finding these talents and then doing stuff with them and then having them move on. Well, with Invader, the idea was you can move on, but we want to make it palatable for you to stay here, because you can grow with us. You can be with us, instead of us being that label that released your first two records, or that comic company that released your intro book or your first book, your second book. We wanted to build a company with Invader, and we think we have, that encourages people to stay along. And so we can be Sub Pop and Warner Brothers at the same time.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's more than that, because it goes in both directions. We've had so many people who not only started here and then went on to bigger things, but people who have gone on to bigger things and then come back because they won't get their own stuff published. Even, like you've got creators who Marvel and DC and Image and Vertigo are trusting to tell their stories, but won't tell the creators' stories. So when Steve Orlando came to us and said, hey, I've got this YA book called The Kitchen Witch, and they won't put it out. Like, will you put it? Yeah, absolutely. Adam Cahoon, dude, he's on the Nasty right now. Right. Same thing with Maglev, Sean Aldridge, any of these guys, where it's like, so DC and Marvel trust you enough to tell their stories, but not your stories. Well, we want to tell your stories.
Yeah, and that's always been, Mike and I both write comics. Mike writes everything. I stick to comics for now, but something that I think our mantras. We happen to have that. I'm not going to say mantra anymore. I promise. But
you're at 12. You're at 12, by the way.
Yeah. The mantra counter. We're cutting the mantra counter off right now. Something that we keep in mind, at least, that we've talked about, is just this idea of I don't want to write something I don't want to write in a creative land that has been well traveled. The odds of finding something wholly original are low, but you can get yourself to some interesting places in creating if you think hard enough about the stories that aren't being told, all those things, right? And so I think we both carry that mindset over into Invader as well as Kevin, right? Like what we like to write are stories that haven't been told as often, or something new, something different. And we like having creators out there that are doing the same thing, that are like, I have this story, it's different, and I can't, and Marvel and DC don't want a part of it or whatever, so do you, and there you go, to what Mike said, right?
What's been the biggest hurdle with working with retailers? Like, I think we talked a little bit about this before the show. Like, I know of you guys, and I've seen you around, and obviously I'm buddies with one of your employees, Blake. But just to be frank with you, I've never seen an Invader book in a comic shop, and I don't go to a ton of comic shops. Mike could probably speak more to availability across the country than I can. But what's been that hurdle like, trying to convince retailers like, hey, these are books worth taking on and giving a shot?
I mean, our struggle is the same that every smaller publisher, indie publisher faces with comic shops. Comic shops have a limited budget. And Marvel and DC, and this is going to sound super salty, and it's because I am a little salty, Marvel and DC do everything that they can to eat up as much of that budget as possible. When it comes to, here's a special cover that you can only get if you order 50 or 100 of the regular cover. Right. And they know that they are going to get that money back because they can send them in and get that, if they don't sell. Right. And so if they eat up all of their discretionary budget for that month doing that, that means that they only have a very, very small amount to take a risk on an indie book that, to be very frank, they don't know if that's going to sell or not. They are taking a risk. They know that, 50 copies of Wolverine are going to sell, so they're going to spend their money on that. And they're business people, and I don't begrudge them doing that. They very well should, because I want comic shops to do absolutely everything that they can to stay in business. But the bottom line is they have a small and ever smaller budget for experimenting on indie books. So it's our challenge to make them an offer they can't refuse. Show them a book that is so fucking good that they can't say no. Right. Is that okay that I'm swearing?
Yeah, perfect. No, yeah, we encourage swearing. Yeah.
Have you guys put any thought into...
That's really it. Like, we just have to we have to make so much noise that they can't.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's the, I mean, what Mike said, right? There's the it's the book, I call it the book to stock problem, right? Like, a retailer is never going to buy an Invader book to stock, just like they aren't going to buy a ton of other publishers that make great books to stock. They're going to buy the hot book this month, the whatever it is, because that's the thing that they're making a business decision for.
What are the challenges into, like, I know a lot of stuff behind the scenes of what different publishers do to get into retailers and everything, but one of the things that I always feel to get into consumers, which might be more important in terms of getting your books ordered in the future, is something like Free Comic Book Day. Have you guys looked into that? Has there been Is that a huge challenge? What goes on there that we don't know
Yeah,
about?
I actually was just talking with Diamond about this last month, about next year's Free Comic Book Day, and we're this coming 2024, and we're already too late for that. So like we have got to be looking at 2025, and the challenges there are you have to get approved by a panel. They have to choose your book.
Oh boy.
You have to, if you don't want to lose money on it, you got to print enough that you're only spending like 25 cents per book.
Wow.
To print them. And you have to have the kind of discretionary funds that you can afford a printing bill like that.
That's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. That's wild. And being approved by a board to me already feels like you're already, you're just not going to get it.
Yeah, you're pushing the boulder uphill.
Yeah, it's like a big boulder going uphill. When I hear that, it's like, okay, well,
yeah, and it's something we definitely looked at and we want to do. We were back when I was first starting out, we were doing that with FUBAR, and that was a huge success.
Yeah,
we would love to, but
yeah, that's true.
We're not the ones making.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten bigger, and as it's gotten bigger, there's unfortunately, I think from our perspective, it's become this stratification. As a fan, when Free Comic Book Day is on the horizon, there's 8 pages of solicitations for Free Comic Book Day now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Platinum sponsor, gold sponsor, diamond sponsor, silver sponsor. You're like, this is like flying United.
Yeah, right.
I'm boarding group 14. How did this happen?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the way I feel. And a lot of shops around here, I have some local ones that you grab free books, but they're like, get the golden sponsor, pay $125, and you get all the comics that are coming out today. I'm like, I don't know if that's how free comics works.
Yeah,
I want to just point a little attention to something on your guys' website while we're speaking of distribution and things like that. You do have a thing that says reach out if you are looking to buy direct from you guys. So is that something you work with comic shops today on?
Yeah, and we've actually been doing this with our last few Kickstarters where we'll have a retailer tier. We do a special cover for them as well.
Oh, cool.
We like to one of our main motivations here, and this is why we use the tag keep print alive a lot of the time.
Yep.
Comics started out as this kind of throwaway thing back in the day. That's great. We don't believe that it should still be that. We want everyone to consider our catalog as a curated collection. And I want every book that we put out to be something special that you hold in your hands and it feels special. That's why for all of our Kickstarter books, we don't have any Kickstarter books. All of our books are in Diamond and in Kickstarter. We just put a special cover for the Kickstarter one that is not only a unique cover, but it's a thicker cardstock as well. So it's just a little bit nicer product. We want it to be something that you feel proud to have on your shelves. We want it to be something special.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, have you been, what other publishers around you have you been paying attention to and seeing what they're doing and maybe kind of, I don't want to say copying, but mimicking or adjusting, what do you see around you that's making you feel like, okay, we could try this and maybe it'll work for us too?
We are every other publisher, every other creator that we think is interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it can be a simple thing. It can be it can be I'm going to drop a name as Flattery. They don't exist anymore because I believe they are now part of Sumerian. But something that we really that I really was smitten by was Behemoth and its branding as a company. Like just the first of all, the name Behemoth is amazing. And then they had a T-shirt that said "Hail Behemoth," and I'm like, man, I am so in on stuff like that. When we were brainstorming Invader, that was one of the companies we turned to. We like the idea of, you know, we want it all. We're greedy, right?
Mhm.
And something we like or we wanted was, you know, for the t-shirts, for the branding, for all that stuff, we wanted it to be cool enough to where someone who doesn't know the first thing about comics would still want to wear it just because
Right.
it looks cool.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I mean, that was one of many inspirations, but I think to Mike's point, we'll, you know, you can take a little bit from everybody. Everything out, you know, everything out there that's good has germs of stuff that you can kind of put on your compost heap and then turn into to something cool that you might do.
Mm-hmm. No, it makes sense.
But if you wanted to point like really, really directly at something, Tim Daniel has been a trusted friend and
Mhm.
colleague ever since we put out Enormous back in the 215 days. And when I was first thinking about this rebrand, he was one of the first guys that I called to just discuss our placement and approach and a lot of different things. And that pink and purple logo that you were talking about that you like so much, he designed that.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Mhm.
That's really cool.
That's Tim Daniels from Vault.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, I mean, I wouldn't even say that's copying. It's just, there's a natural intersection there that,
Right.
that, you know, trusted friends.
Yep.
So we do have some kind of overlap there.
And before we're going to talk about Neurocron in a second here after we get all this juicy details about publishing. But do you guys see yourself, like, I mean, you have submissions and things like that or projects you're working on. Do you find yourself like, hey, maybe we need to be putting out a little more fantasy this year, a little more horror? Is there anything you see, like, or is it just as the ideas or projects come to you, you're like, that's cool, let's publish it? Or is there something you're looking more to be working on or showing off? I mean, you got Kung Fu in Space, love that. You know, Three Protectors is great, but anything like you wanted to branch out to more?
We've definitely been looking at getting into more YA stuff.
Okay.
Just because we feel as though that's a fertile ground that
Mhm.
is not only slightly being ignored at certain levels, with regard with how much good stuff is out there.
Right.
But listen, my first love is reading and prose. I grew up with books, bookshelves everywhere, worked in bookstores for years, all through high school and college and after. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I firmly believe that comics is one of the best ways to get people into reading.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
YA is just a natural there.
Yep.
And we already have so many good YA books, both already out and coming out.
Mhm.
And it's just something that I really would love to see, you know, especially creators like Tayson with Box Boy and Keepsakers, like just getting more attention, because
Mhm.
he's the epitome of what we were talking about before. Creators that I stumble upon and I'm like, holy shit,
Yeah.
how are you not getting more attention?
Mhm.
But beyond that, and I think Keith would mirror this, we just pick books we fall in love with. We're not so much chasing genres, you know, and we very well may like fall in love with something for a little bit, and so you go out searching for it. But
Right.
the way we choose books is literally the same way that I used to choose books when I would go into the comic shop and I would stumble upon the indie table and I'd pick up a book, and if I fell in love with it in those first 3 pages, I bought it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
If
I
don't
mean,
feel that way, I'm not going to publish it.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to compound, you know, to kind of try to add something to what Mike is saying, I think we do, you know, I personally have, and I think some of these are shared, you know, we have some things that like nice to haves, right? Like, wouldn't it be cool if, and I know, and I can give one sort of nice to have and one thing that, you know, we might be a little bit like, again, you know, a little bit we favor and a little bit maybe you've got to really work hard to get public to get us, you know, get our attention on. I think like manga, right? Like manga is the wave of the future. It's obvious. The number of shows I go to as a creator and I'm tabling, it's just I see manga coming. I have kids. The kids all love it. Yeah, exactly.
I want right
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm trying to read more of it. So I think that's the kind of thing where, you know, like a tie goes to the runner kind of situation. It would be, yeah. I mean, if we can find a good manga book, we'll put it out. Does that mean we're going to overreach? No. but I think if we find something cool, then we'll put it out. And then, you know, on the other side is like superheroes, right? Like I think
Right.
you've got to be a different kind of superhero book to get our attention, like Freaks and Gods, which we published and is a different kind of superhero book. So, you know, you can like, we'll publish, to Mike's point, anything that we just think is cool. And there are some things out there, you know, again, we'd like to do more YA. We have some other things that we're looking at, and, you know, that does help kind of calibrate us going forward. But we've been blown away by a few books I don't think we can really announce yet that are in the process, and, you know, just they come from anywhere, and we're like, that's a really cool story, we all love it, let's publish it.
I think the more important end of that is that we're just not going to chase trends, because that's just a great recipe to end up playing monkey in the middle.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up YA, and I don't know if this really counts as YA, maybe more younger reader, but I mean, I talk about it so much, Mike's sick of me bringing it up, but I always go to Dave Pilkey, who does those Dogman books, and he is by far the most successful comic creator in the world right now. And I don't understand why. I mean, like, I'm not going to read it. I can't speak for everybody in this panel, but I don't think we're not the audience.
Yeah.
But why more people aren't diving down that rabbit hole to be like, look what this dude's doing in the audience he's creating. I mean, we always go to Marvel and DC and say, like, why isn't someone call Dave and be like, you want to do an Avengers book in your style, or just another creator to be like you guys are saying with YA books to get people into reading. Most people's first books of my generation, and I think we're all about the same age, a lot of people go to Captain Underpants, like,
Oh yeah,
like that's Pilkey's stuff. Like,
so what you're saying is we need like a Muppet Babies for the Avengers type situation.
Yeah, there you go.
I want to see
be
publishers
amazing.
reaching out to younger readers, and I go to Marvel and DC because they're the big two. They're the big bad boys in the room, and why they aren't reaching out further to, because I say this very selfishly. I want more kids reading comics so that in 20 years, well, hopefully 30, 40 years when I'm in a nursing home, I can still have comics to read.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think that the YA and young kids section that a lot of you guys are reaching out to, I mean, I've gotten emails from a bunch of publishers about YA books that aren't up my alley, but fuck, I hope they're successful, man.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would argue that the best YA, or we don't even have to say YA, just the best books for younger people are still enjoyable for adults.
Yes, exactly. Right.
The Hobbit, Never-Ending Story, like even selfishly what my brother is doing with Goblin and the sequel to that, The Wolf in the Well, that'll be out in July. Like that's aimed,
which was a great book, by the way.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't he stupid talent, that fucker? It's
That's
like
awesome.
that's enjoyable for everyone.
Right.
You want something to be, I always go to the example of like a parent reading to a kid, and before they can read on their own, you want it to be enjoyable for them.
Yep.
That's what's going to put that in there. And in my other career, I've been an auto journalist for 20 some odd years, and I remember I was reviewing and testing one of the newer Mustangs, like the special edition ones that it was like an $80,000 car, and then I was looking at, well, like, even if you want to get the regular Mustang, it's $50,000 for a V8.
Right.
That's a problem.
Right.
My dad is willing to pay $80,000 for a Mustang now because when he was 16 in 1966, he could get a Mustang right out of high school.
Right.
If you can't do that as a kid, you're not going to be willing to do that in 40 years. If you don't get young readers now, you're going to be screwed in 20 years.
Exactly. Yep.
This isn't difficult math, guys.
Right. Yeah, it adds up. Yeah, you can figure that out. And while we talked about that, I think Chris and I had discovered one. What was the Ham Housing? Remember that one?
Oh yeah, I still got that upstairs. I want to read it. Yeah.
Which I found it in like a kids section at a bookstore. It's a graphic novel, but it's like enjoyable. I was flipping through it. I'm like, oh my God, I would read this in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? It's like, it's out there. Just fun comics, that can be enjoyed by anybody. But But all right,
Can I get one more in before we go?
Get one more in. Yeah, go ahead.
Because it's something that I've noticed some of the publishers on. I mean this in the best way possible. On like your tier where you guys land in the tiers of publishers. One of them that I have been singing the praises of for a while now, Mag Cave, just announced a bunch of IP dumps. Some of them not for me. Some of them look interesting. Have you guys? Where does that land with you guys? Like, have you ever thought about like, fuck, if we got this IP and just put out this, it might help our name? Is that not of an interest to you?
Well, you did the Night of the Living book, right? Is that technically an IP, right?
Yeah,
I guess that would count. Yeah.
Well, that was because that was at the time when we started that project. That was it was just out there. You could just do it.
Oh, okay. It was open. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While we were putting that together, the last two producers who were still alive, they managed to put out that Criterion collection and trademark the logo Night of the Living Dead and a couple of the characters' names and likenesses. Not the movie itself, but that was enough that they could do it. So we actually, when that appeared in previews, we got a cease and desist.
Wow.
So I had to call them up and talk to them, and they were very nice people and they were happy to help, and they didn't charge us anything, but they allowed us to be an officially licensed product.
Wow.
We were very grateful. And Night of the Living Dead is my favorite horror movie, my first horror love. So to have because I wrote that, Will Perkins, my brother, illustrated it, to be now a part of the legacy of that is just,
that's
a dream come true. Yeah. As for that, I mean, it just feels kind of against the spirit of Invader.
Okay.
We're looking to discover new shit.
Yeah. My answer to that question is no to properties, yes to creators. Yeah, there are creators where I'm like, oh yeah, they'd be cool to work with, and hey, and there's a couple that we're talking to right now that we hope can be part of our future schedule. A couple creators where it was like, oh, this person's really cool, and
who is it, Keith? Tell us, who is it?
Mike, can I?
I'm not sure who you're talking about, to be honest.
When we're done, you can tell us when we're done recording. That's usually when we get.
Yeah. We'll tell you when we're done recording.
Okay, all right.
I believe we have a spot in our 2024 schedule for this person.
Okay, so great. Yeah, I love to hear it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It was just a good joke. So go on.
No. That was pretty much it. Like creators are I think in terms of creators as opposed to properties.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because you could always be like, oh yeah, we want to do, well, I guess Wizard of Oz isn't trademarked, but like we want to do an Oz book, and it's like, okay, well, anybody could write it and it could come out any way you want. But if you have a specific writer or creator you're looking for, then this is what we're expecting out of them as far as tone or artwork or something. That makes more sense.
As opposed to doing a regular Oz book and just trying to force creators like, we need someone to put this book out.
Yeah. I mean, I had someone come to me because there was a brief period where the Godzilla license, I think, was up for grabs because IDW lost it and then no one had it. And since then, I think IDW has gotten it back. But they were like, you should, what if 215, whatever at the time, probably 215. But what if Invader, went with the Godzilla license? And it's like, I write a giant monster book.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's not Godzilla, but it does have giant monsters smashing things. So it's the essence of Godzilla, So yeah, for me, I think it's always about a creator and their take on something, and you better change it up enough to where it's yours, and so that's always a side of the fence I think I'm going to land on.
And that's not to say that we would be, opposed to, different IPs or licenses. Because, very honestly, Gory Books, which was the series that the Night of the Living Dead book was from, that got a lot of attention. And we've had a lot of different companies come to us and talk to us about doing licensed properties in that same series. And they're ongoing conversations. So that could very well happen. But it's certainly not something that we're going to chase. If I'm going to be chasing stuff, there are other avenues that I would rather walk down.
Yeah. How about can I give an obscure reference? Is that cool with visual aid?
Yeah,
Now,
Mike doesn't
someone
get
came
it,
to
he's
me
gonna give
with
you a hard
a
time.
super Inframan comic
Okay. All right.
based on one of my favorite obscure movies of all time, then yes, I think, and I know Invader would have one strong voice yes in the room for a super Inframan comic.
Keith is gonna have an influx of his email of all these random scripts about this game.
Man, I'll be
So,
happy
like,
if I
a
get
Mayor
one
McCheese
person that
book?
says,
Oh yeah, there
yeah,
you go.
there we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
I
what's
mean-
his backstory?
Yeah, it's probably really scary. I don't want to know it, honestly.
I don't know, but he's
It's
sitting
too
next
dark.
to the Thanos
Too
counter
dark to
over here.
publish.
Yeah. So before we get to, we're gonna get to Neurocon, but Keith, I did want to bring up Kadoja because you did mention it there for a second. I'm a huge Godzilla fan, and I'm very ashamed to just realize today that you had a giant monster book. So I will
Mhm.
be going and reading all of them, and hopefully talking to you in the future about it because
Yeah.
I need to go do my research now.
No, it's good. It's been going, and I'm actually writing what is going to be the final issue that's going to come
Oh,
out
wow.
next year. It was designed as sort of a maxi story, so
Mhm.
4 graphic novels in total. And I'm putting I'm writing the last one. The art still has to be done for it, but
Mhm.
yeah, I mean it was the first comic I ever did. It's a big part of my life, and now I'm happy to write a bunch of other comics, and I'm also happy to sort of usher this thing to the finish line and put
Cool.
a bow on it.
Very
And
cool.
don't forget Enormous, Mike.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
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 Enormous too. Oh, hold on. I'm going down the list here. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
another perfect example.
Yeah.
That book came out with Image,
Yep.
Mhm.
and for some fucking reason, Image said, "No, I'm not. We don't want to continue with that." Like,
Yeah.
are you with a creator of the caliber of Tim
Yeah. Tim Daniel book. Yep.
and that story is like you
Yeah.
can't. So you came to us, and he was like, "Hey, yeah, fuck yes, we want to put that out. Are you kidding
Yeah.
me? Yes."
Right.
And he's been kind enough to say that Invader will always be the home of Enormous. So we
Yeah.
are, re-releasing the original books under the Enormous banner, and then we'll be.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Oh yeah, we already put out the first volume. It should be in
Mhm.
stores in a couple months. We
Okay.
finished the Kickstarter last month.
Yeah. Next month.
And,
Mhm.
and then we'll be putting out new issues. This is all just in prepper to like start it over to get everybody on board again and keep going with the series.
That's awesome because I would love to start there too.
Yeah, and as a kaiju fan,
Yeah.
like it. What I love about Enormous too is it's a different kind of kaiju story, and
Mhm.
and as someone who loves the kaiju genre, it's cool to see different branches kind of form under this cool genre of kaiju storytelling.
Yeah. I love that. Plus the getting to see some different design giant monsters is where I love that shit.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. The monsters in Enormous are fantastic in terms of
Yeah,
their design.
they're really cool. All right, guys, we're gonna talk about the elephant in the room, Neurocron. That's why we got to pimp some stuff out here too. So let's talk Neurocron. It comes out in February, right? End of February,
Yes.
I believe.
Yes.
Issue 1. So give us the rundown on that book.
So this is a book that was brought to us. Speaking of invading new spaces, Kevin and I, in our day jobs, we work with production companies, and so we work on a lot of. Kevin has worked for Comedy Central. He worked for Discovery History Channel. I've worked with Discovery Nat Geo. We met actually doing a rebrand for the Philo streaming service of all things. And one of our friends, Dan Powell, is a producer on shows like Ugly Americans and I Think You Should Leave, and a lifelong comic fan, and another one of these guys who has been writing comics his entire life but has never had any of them put out. And so he teamed up with Dennis Calero, who did work on Spider-Man Noir, X-Men Noir, amongst many others, and put together this book, Neurocron, which is a cyberpunk dystopian crime thriller that centers around a murder that happens in a shady part of town, and they find some cybernetic tech on the body, and it leads to a what they thought was a cyber techno cultist that has disappeared, and they find that he is still alive at the center of this mystery. The art is just absolutely fantastic. The narrative, the story is absolutely something that you would expect from someone who's a lifelong comic fan and who has written for some really big properties. We guided him through some of the ways to make the story even better. And we are going to be debuting the first issue, even though it officially lands in stores in February. We printed up 200 copies of a special cover
Nice.
for the first issue, and we'll be debuting it at LA Comic-Con, December 1st through 3rd. What's our table, Keith?
It is B49. We are table B49 in Artist Alley.
Right.
B49. He will be there signing copies on Sunday, I think.
Saturday. Mm-hmm.
Saturday is what I meant to say.
the better day to be there. Yeah.
And
Nice.
another perfect example of this invading new spaces, the creators of Darla, which is a book that we put out earlier this year, which got a lot of attention in Fangoria. That's put out by Josh Rubin, who is the writer-director of movies, the horror comedy movies like Werewolves Within and Scare Me. I'm sure you've seen Josh around. He will also be there signing copies along with the artist Bree Tippett. We're going to be having some of our special Kickstarter covers there. We do not sell our Kickstarter covers other than on the Kickstarters or at cons. So this is the only place you can get them.
Cool.
We're going to be having a real good time.
I'm a big fan of exclusives, so that's a great idea.
Yeah. This is the first show that we've done as Invader. So yeah, we're looking forward to it. And I like doing a little inside baseball stuff. One of my being part of a comic company, there's things that are like, they try your nerves a little bit, or whatever. But one of my favorite things about being part of a comic company is when you combine cool art with cool logos. So we have been the logo journey of Neurocron was really fun to just see the logos continue to like elevate and different treatments and all that stuff. And then you get to the cool treatment and then you get to mess with the different colors. I'm one of those cool, I love, I have some Invader books, lined up next to each other on the shelf here. And I like that they sort of go together because they have the unifying logo. It's always neat when you have books that look cool, displayed on a shelf, spine wise, right?
But the logo is always in the same spot.
Yeah. So, so the Neurocron, I mean, we went through this with the special LA Comic-Con version of #1. We went through it with the Diamond, the comic retailer version of #1, and we were just going back and forth on the logo treatment for #2. And like every time a new issue comes through with what we agree is the final logo, it's like, oh man, it looks so cool. So just one of those fun little things about being a part of a comic company too.
And we have to give credit to our art director, Michael Nelson. He's been doing the majority of our logos and covers, both the shop covers and our Kickstarter exclusive and the retailer exclusive covers, all that stuff, and has been absolutely fucking killing it. His own book, Supernaut, this is another situation where we found this. It was like, how are you not getting more attention? Take a look at Supernaut. The design on that book alone is the reason that we asked him to be our art director, because
the art is amazing.
It's insane the way this, and it's just the density and the detail of the design of that book. What made me a fan forever and ever. Amen. I mean, the guy. I mean, listen. I'm talking about my own company.
Yep.
Again, but look at our covers. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Mike Nelson.
Yep.
Yeah,
they're really
and it's a familiar refrain of dealing when creators will get back their covers once we give them the logo treatment. I mean, every time they're like, "Holy shit, this looks so good," and it's Mike Nelson. It's the work that Mike is doing just through every single book, doing the coolest stuff for us. So yeah, he is awesome.
That's Supernaut cover is dope.
Yeah.
If you want help designing your cover, designing your logo, contact Mike Nelson. That has nothing to do with us. We're not. I'm not his agent. I'm not taking a percentage here. He's just fantastic, and he just does amazing work.
Did he do the ones for Back to Fairy Talia?
No, that was done by, I mean, he did the final covers dress and everything like that, but the art on that and that cover was done by who was that?
I was just gonna say that series in particular, we talked about a little bit on the show where like my pull list is so big that I'm trying to cut it. But that's one of those series that I look at and I'm like, they know who their audience is, and
Yep.
I'm their audience, and it just their covers speak to me so well because I feel like I'm gonna love that book just by the cover. Every time.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, it was they just continually put out new ones. You know, we had that we had the special second printing of the first issue where it showed the censored. Yes. He's holding up the severed troll nutsack.
Yeah,
love that cover.
Yeah,
Diamond made us censor that.
Oh man.
Come on. That was also fun. Remember, we messed with the censoreds.
Yeah.
And I think once we got the one back that I think the final version that just has censored absolutely everywhere, like plastered over like bad stickers.
Yeah.
We were like, this is so perfect. It fits the tone of the book. It's the best.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's and again, that's another perfect example of the Invader approach here, looking for new things. That's put together by a group called Mondo 23. This is a group of comic fans from Germany who have written some of the most popular German television shows of the last 20 years. They're a creative collective together, and they've just always wanted to put out comics. And talk about a home run on your first.
Yeah.
Would you ever think that this was a debut comic?
Yeah, that's insane. No way.
Just judging by what I've seen of the book, I wouldn't believe you.
It's
yeah, not at all.
That's and we've got the collected trade of that one coming up in a few months too.
Wow. Awesome. All right. I'll be looking for it.
Well, I know you guys have been really generous with your time, but if you don't mind, I had one more thing I wanted to dive into. Of
course.
How has the Kickstarter initiative gone for you, and what have you seen? What's kind of coming down the pipeline for that?
It has been just absolutely perfect. You know, one of our biggest gripes with working with Diamond is that you don't know who's buying your books. And I don't mean like the individual who ends up with the book. I mean the stores. So you have no idea. You don't know if like all of your sales are coming from the Northeast, for instance. You don't know if all of your sales are coming from 2 stores. You don't know shit. That's frustrating. So with Kickstarter, we're able to communicate directly with the readers. And that was something that we only previously ever got at cons. And especially once the pandemic hit and we weren't doing cons anymore, that was something that was completely ripped away from us. And it was so frustrating. So the fact that we get to communicate directly with the readers, the fact that we get to put out more covers without falling victim to the whole like a million different variants bullshit. We get to do some really special shit. All of our books now come with, you know, extra swag. You know, like we do those metal bookmarks, which are all so gorgeous. We get to do prints or sticker groupings, all kinds of unique stuff. And it's, you know, that's some of the most fun part of, like you were saying, Mike, exclusives. It's like some of the most fun part of comics, so that it allows us to do that. And it also gives us a little bit of wiggle room where, you know, like normally if you have a book that maybe sales drop after issue 2 or 3, which they all do, when we're doing this just gives us that little bit of financial bump to make sure that that never results in a cancellation. Because like we are 100% committed to never ever cancel a book unless a creator stops making the book. We can't help that, obviously. Right. But like we're never going to do it where, you know, Diamond says, okay, we're not going to, you know, you drop a little issue, we're going to stop listing this. Fuck you. We're going to keep putting out that book. Yeah. And this just makes sure that happens. So to get to like create all this really cool stuff, to get to, you know, communicate directly with the readers, it's been nothing but great.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And I think you're using it in the right way to, like you said, elevate the exclusives and even helping out local comic shops, like getting those nice cardstock covers like you talked about. I think that's a great idea too. So
And
Yeah.
selfishly, because we have the Kickstarters running at the same time that the book is in previews, it's just another way to try and get a little bit more attention on the book itself, which being heard above the noise it's fucking hard.
Yeah.
I can imagine. So.
Yeah, and to compound on one thing, like we do have this frustration with Diamond not being willing to share the retailer information. I bet I understand why they do it, which is they don't want to give you the means to go direct and to cut them off. But I would argue that's not a guarantee. Like
Right.
if I'm a retailer, why would I want 50 to 100 comic publishers going direct with me? Why would I want to spend my life paying invoices from 50 different comic publishers when I could just consolidate them through one place? So right. I understand the logic of them doing it, but there's in a multiverse where they give comic publishers that information, I'm not sure it changes that much. Well, all it does is allow us to partner with retailers, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we are like desperate for that information, because we'd love to know, so we could say, hey, you want a free poster, if someone buys a lot of copies, do you want to do a signing, any of these kind of things that wouldn't just help us, they would help comic retailers, and I think the comic retailers I talk to, and so what I've heard in conversations and what I see from comic retailers is, I think comic retailers are really trying to get ahead of the market, in that they're trying to make their store like a destination. And I think that's smart. I as a creator, Mike's done one, and I've done, I think, 6 in stores this year. Because and this is the biggest number of in-stores I have ever seen. And odds are your local comic shop out there is doing something cool just like that, whatever it is, a DJ, a creator signing, a cool release around a book. And I think that's great to see comic retailers doing that. I think there's a degree of creativity to it, and there's also a degree of necessity to it, because with the comic industry the way it is, you want to make sure that you keep your fans going and buying comics and wanting to visit your store to buy those comics.
Yeah. And you're 100% right, because I think COVID proved your point that comic retailers across the United States bitched and moaned when it became 3 different invoices they had to pay, let alone 50 or 100.
Yeah. Right.
So, and it makes more sense, because then you could call up Joe's Comics in Oklahoma and be like, you get every Invader book. Like, do you want some bookmarks to hand out to your people? Do you want a poster?
Right.
That's what it would go toward, at least for you smaller guys.
You have no idea how slutty we would be if we found a comic shop that was buying all of our.
Please, we'll give you everything. Please.
I will show up and oh God.
Oh God.
With
the Invader bikini.
It's like Mike
what do you on your pizza, friend?
Mike showed up with a trench coat on. I don't know what's happening.
But like with so many of the bigger cons, no longer, let's be honest, being comic cons, they're pop culture cons at best. At fucking best.
Yeah, right.
The opportunity for comic shops to like fill in that vacuum, and like I did Cape and Cowl Con, the first one this year from one of my local shops, and listen, also Tim did the logos for that one too, because he's everywhere. That was one of the best cons I've been to in years, and it had it came the closest to that feeling that I had back when Comic Cons were really, really good and actually about comics. We had the amount of people who were there that were, it was a smaller amount of people because it was just, in Berkeley, California. It wasn't some big thing, but every single person there was there for comics. Every single person. And it felt fantastic.
Yep, and we're starting to see that too with smaller conventions.
Yeah, smaller cons.
So these 1 day, 2 day conventions, whatever. I mean, I had one down the street from me in Whittier a couple weekends ago. They're popping up everywhere, and that's cool to see. It's cool to see comics reasserting themselves as the focus of a show for you to go to.
it's funny because I didn't know how spoiled I was with that. And actually, Mike, you might have gone to this one a few times. I won't name the city that I live in, but the city I live in had a local Comic-Con that invited a few shops. The shop in town ran it, had some creators, and it was old school. We're in the hotel conference room and all just hanging out. And I'd go there every year and it'd be like, it'd be fun. You didn't think much of it. And then COVID killed that thing. It's gone.
Yeah.
And I never realized how
Perkins
spoiled
did
I
a
was.
poster for that
Yep.
Yes.
a few times.
I think he did a Beware poster for it one year.
He did.
Yep. Yeah.
Damn.
So, but yeah, guys, you've been awesome with your time. So
yeah, we greatly appreciate all the time you took with us today. Yeah.
I mean, thank you so much for having us. Yeah.
It was awesome.
We love talking comics.
I'll get slutty with you guys too.
All right, great. Let's go. All right, give him the address. Give him the address, quick. Yeah. So before you go, let's pimp out the website and stuff. Where do we want to send all our listeners and our viewers to follow the Invaders shit that's going on?
You can find us absolutely everywhere at Invader Comics. So that's invadercomics.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're on Blue Sky, TikTok. We got a Substack. You name it, man. We're everywhere.
Awesome. Great.
We have invaded so many spaces.
Yeah. I just stick to Twitter right now. I can't do all that other shit.
Okay.
To all you lovely people out there watching, listening, as well as those places, you can check out the show notes because I'll have links to the previews website where you can just click and order your copy of Neurocron, and also the Invader website, so you can click and check that out as well. So make sure you go do that. Boys, thank you so much for being on, taking the time today. We really appreciate it. And we'll do it again soon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks.